Hey guys, I hope you guys are doing great. Um, I really do miss you guys. I hope everybody's staying safe. And this is harder, I think, on me than it is on you guys. Well, I don't know. It's hard on everybody, but I certainly do miss seeing your faces every day. So I wanted to go over, I was going to do a Google Meet, but even with my other classes, I've had so many people that don't show up or don't log in, and I know that everybody has different things going on. So I thought I would just make a quick video going over our notes that we have that we've been doing. So the guided notes. The first one is the notes on the cardiac output and the heart rate, which is page 315 and 318 from your book. So I'll go over that today, and you can check your answers with both of these, and that'll be all that we'll do today. So first, what are heart murmurs? When does blood flow silently, and when can it be heard with a stethoscope? So heart murmurs are abnormal or unusual heart sounds. A lot of times those are detected when babies are born. You can detect a heart murmur. You also can acquire one later on as you get older. So basically, those are just abnormal or unusual heart sounds. When does blood flow silently, and when can it be heard with a stethoscope? So blood flows smoothly and silently when it's uninterrupted. When it strikes obstructions, the flow becomes turbulent and generates sounds. So you can kind of think of like a blood clot or a closing of your arteries due to arteriosclerosis or something of that nature. In whom are heart murmurs common? Basically, usually young children or elderly. So what do heart murmurs usually indicate? They can mean nothing, but it also can mean that you have some heart valve problems. Mitral valve prolapse is a very good example of that. It basically just means something's wrong with your valve. So you have to really get that checked out by a doctor if they are hearing a heart murmur. Cardiac output. So what is cardiac output? The amount of blood pumped out by each side of the heart or each ventricle in 1 minute is considered the cardiac output. How is it calculated? It's the heart rate times the stroke volume. So what is stroke volume? Stroke volume is the volume of blood that's pumped out by a ventricle with each heartbeat. Okay? So the volume of blood pumped out by a ventricle with each heartbeat. In general, the stroke volume increases as the force of ventricle contraction increases. The normal blood volume is about 5,000 milliliters. So the entire blood supply passes through the body once per minute. It's kind of cool when you think about it. What does the cardiac output? When does the cardiac output increase? That should say, if your sheet says, I can't remember which one I loaded for you guys. If it says stroke volume, cancel that out. And that's supposed to be, when does cardiac output increase? So when stroke volume increases, the heart beats faster. When does cardiac output decrease? When the stroke volume decreases, then the heartbeat decreases. Okay. Regulation of stroke volume. How much of the blood does a healthy heart pump out? 60% of the blood that enters it. Okay. The critical factor controlling stroke volume is how much the cardiac muscle cells are stretched before they contract. What is the important factor stretching the heart muscle? What is it? It's called the venous return. It's the amount of blood entering the heart and distending its ventricles. What happens if one side of the heart suddenly begins to pump more blood than the other? What is this preventing? So the increased venous return to the opposite ventricle will force it to pump out an equal amount. So this basically prevents backup of blood in circulation. What also increases when volume or speed of venous return increases? High stroke volume and the force of contraction. That's what you should have there. So the high stroke volume and the force of contraction. What happens during exercise and why? So this actually exercise actually causes this speed. It speeds up your venous return because it results in an increased heart rate and force. What happens during massive blood loss and why? You have a low venous return. So you have lower stroke volume, causing the heart to beat less forcefully. So massive blood loss is not good, right? Regulation of your heart rate. What happens to the heart rate when the blood volume suddenly drops, and why? So when your stroke volume drops and your cardiac output is maintained by a faster heartbeat. What part of the nervous system can change the heart rate? The autonomic nervous system is what I'm looking for there. What else can the heart rate be modified by? The heart rate can be modified by chemicals, hormones, ions. During times of physical and emotional stress, how and by what is the heart rate increased? So your sympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system will stimulate the nodes, the nodes in the I cannot even read my handwriting. Stimulates the nodes in the cardiac muscle itself, so your heart actually beats faster. I had to come back to that. I cannot read my own handwriting. That's not good. What does a faster heart rate do to oxygen and glucose levels within the body? You increase the rate at which oxygen and glucose is brought to the cells. And the higher or the more oxygen and glucose available to, and it increases more oxygen and glucose available to the cells. When are the parasympathetic nerves stimulated and what is the effect? So when the demand declines, you have the parasympathetic system slows and it steadies the heart and provides more time for rest. Describe congestive heart failure. My grandfather had this. It was a awful condition. What occurs in people with this condition. So basically your heart is nearly worn out due to age or hypertensive heart disease, and your heart pumps very, very weakly. What happened with my grandfather is his heart started pumping so weakly that he was basically not even able to move fluids throughout his body. And this is actually what he died from. And by the time he passed, his chest just looked like a huge bubble. It was a terrible way to go. But your book doesn't mention it, but you can also have congestive heart failure from smoking. So it can cause all kinds of the nicotinic acid in cigarettes. If it doesn't affect your lungs, chances are it will affect your heart. So you can actually have congestive heart failure from smoking, and that's what they attributed his congestive heart failure to. How does epinephrine affect the heart rate? So it acts like the sympathetic nerves, so it increases your heart rate. Epinephrine we'll also think of as adrenaline, right? So it's going to increase your heart rate. Why is an electrolyte imbalance a threat to the heart? It can depress or prolong contractions or cause abnormal heart rhythms. What is hypercalcemia? How is it related to electrolyte imbalances? So you can kind of look at that base of the word. I always tell you guys to do that. Calcemia. So you would know that is too high levels of calcium. So very high levels of calcium and prolonged contractions that may cause the heart to stop. So that's what it can cause. So if you have these really high level or elevated levels of calcium, it can actually prolong your contractions, and then that can actually make your heart stop beating. What happens if potassium levels are lower than normal in the blood? It causes the heart to beat weakly and can cause abnormal heart rhythms. Um, Physical factors that affect heart rate include your age, gender, whether you exercise, your body temperature. This is kind of neat too. The resting heart rate in a fetus is between 140 to 160 beats per minute, BPM. How is the average heart rate in females different from that of males? A female is around 72 to 80 beats per minute, and it's faster than in males. A male is around 64 to 72 beats per minute. How does cold affect the heart rate? So actually, you can cold can actually lower the heart rate. How does heat affect the heart rate? It can increase the heart rate by boosting the metabolic rate of the heart cells. Congestive heart failure is a progressive condition caused by weakening of the heart by coronary arteriosclerosis, persistent high blood pressure. You could have many heart attacks that can cause that. Basically, you don't have an adequate supply of blood to your tissues, decreases the pumping efficiency of your heart. So when you don't have efficient pumping of your heart, then that's going to cause you to have an inadequate supply of blood to your tissues. What can happen if the left side of the heart is unable to eject the returning blood into the systemic circulation? So, systemic circulation there is different from your pulmonary circulation, if you remember that. Systemic is all of your other body part to all the other parts of your body. Pulmonary circulation is just from your heart to your lungs, right? So the question is asking what can happen if the left side of the heart is unable to eject the returning blood into the systemic circulation. Well, if the left side fails, pulmonary congestion occurs, and blood vessels within the lungs can swell. So basically, you're having a kind of like a backup in your lungs there, and it causes pulmonary congestion to occur. What happens if the right side of the heart fails? Describe what symptoms would be present. You would have peripheral congestion, so blood backs up in the systemic circulation. You can have edema, swelling of the extremities, failure of one side causes great strain to the opposite side, basically, is what you're looking at here. So eventually what happens is your whole heart fails. So make sure you understand the difference of what happens to the left side of the heart versus the right side of the heart. Okay, so that is notes on the cardiac output and the heart rate. Then I also gave you the lymphatic system notes. That is the second set, page 335 to 338. So what does the lymphatic system include? It includes a network of lymphatic vessels, the lymph nodes, various other lymphoid organs and tissues throughout the body. Without the lymphatic system, what would happen to the cardiovascular system and to our immune system? It would basically not work, right? We have to have the lymphatic system. To put it in a nutshell, it's not going to work. Lymphatic vessels, because the closed cardiovascular system is a high pressure system, it tends to be a little leaky. So for those two blanks, we're looking for high pressure and then leaky. What is the function of the lymphatic vessels? They can pick up the excess tissue fluid. What is lymph? Lymph is the excess fluid that lags behind in the tissue spaces and doesn't make it back into the veins. 0.1% is water, and it has also a small amount of dissolved proteins in lymph. What happens if the lymph is not collected? What is edema, basically? So it will accumulate in the tissues and impairs the ability of the tissue cells to make exchanges with the blood. It can produce edema, which is, again, that fluid buildup in the tissues. We talked about it in the other set of guided notes. Describe the lymphatic vessels. They are basically a one-way system. It flows towards the heart, and it spider webs throughout all tissues. The right lymphatic duct drains what part of the body? So, lymph from the right arm and the right side of the head and the thorax. What does the thoracic duct do? It drains from the rest of the body. How are lymphatic vessels like veins? Both are thin walled, and the larger ones have valves. How is lymph moved through the vessels? You have smooth muscles. Smooth muscle in vessel walls contracts rhythmically and can actually pump the lymph. What are lymph nodes? What do lymph nodes do? They protect the body by removing foreign material such as bacteria, tumor cells from the lymphatic stream, and they also produce lymphocytes. Where in the body are there high concentrations of lymph nodes? Where are these locations? So basically, they're around the lymphatic vessels. You can have them in your groin, axillary, or your armpit area. And then the cervical, your neck, or your throat. Oftentimes, when you go to the doctor, they will kind of feel for your lymph nodes there. Where in the lymph nodes have macrophages and lymphocytes. What do they do? So macrophages engulf and destroy bacteria and viruses and other foreign invaders in lymph substances, and lymphocytes respond to foreign invaders in the lymph. Why do glands swell when we're sick? So why are doctors actually feeling for your glands to see if you're sick? Basically, they're trapping invaders, right? So they can be full of bacteria, viruses. A lot of times when you are sick, it also will be very tender when they touch that area. It's basically because it's full of bacteria and viruses. Okay. Next page. What do lymph nodes look like? Their shape and the size, and what are they surrounded by? What is the internal framework composed of? So most are kind of kidney shaped. They are less than 1 inch long and buried in connective tissue. They are surrounded by a fibrous capsule. These extend inward. And then their internal framework is a network of soft reticular connective tissue that supports changing populations of the lymphocytes. So I know I'm going kind of fast, but you guys have the opportunity to go back and stop the video and rewind. So sorry if I'm going fast. But technically you should have already had these answers. So you should just be checking your answers at this point. What is found at the cortex of the lymph node? We find follicles that have germinal centers, and these are used in B cell plasma and cell production. What is found at the medulla of the lymph node? Phagocytic macrophages be your answer there. Why is the flow of lymph through lymph nodes slow? Let's see. Why is I lost my place. Why is the flow of lymph through lymph nodes slow? Because they move afferently or towards vessels than afferent away from vessels. So it basically allows macrophages and lymphocytes to perform their protective function. So other lymphoid organs. What is the common feature of all the lymphoid organs? Predominance of reticular connective tissue and lymphocytes. What roles do all lymphoid organs share? Basically, protection of the body. The lymph nodes only filter the lymph. Spleen, where is the spleen located? That is on the left side of the abdominal cavity. It curves around anterior of the stomach. What does the spleen do? So your spleen filters and cleans the blood. It destroys worn out red blood cells. It returns broken down pieces of the liver. Um, yep. What role does the spleen play during a hemorrhage? So it contracts and stores excess blood. Um, how does the adult spleen behave differently from the fetal spleen? In the fetus, your spleen actually forms blood cells. In an adult, it only lymphocytes are produced. The thymus, when is it most active? Pretty much during your youth. What does it do? It produces hormones. It produces the hormone thymosin that helps in programming of certain lymphocytes for protection. Tonsils. What do tonsils do? They also trap and remove bacteria, foreign pathogens that enter the throat. When do they become red, swollen, and sore? When they are congested with invaders. Same as your lymph nodes there. Payer's patch. Where are those found? Why is this an ideal position? They're kind of similar in a way to tonsils, but it's found in the walls of the intestine. The intestine is used for absorption of nutrients, so preventing them from entering the intestines and potentially being absorbed. What is the mucosa associated lymphatic tissue, also known as MALT, M-A-L-T? That includes your tonsils and your Payer's patch. It acts to protect your upper respiratory and digestive tracts from invaders from entering cavities. Okay. Oh, that was it. Okay, so that's basically. There was something that I felt like I needed to go back over that I need to check my answers. If you have something different, let me know. I think that was all that I wanted to say. I was trying to look back over my notes and see if there was anything else there was one part that I was looking at that I needed to go back over. I can't read my own handwriting, y'all. That's horrible. Okay. Anyway, I think that was it. We will have probably a quiz maybe on Friday. It'll be open notes. It'll be open book. If we do that, it'll just be on notes from the cardiac output. It'll just be from the first sheet that we did. I hope you guys feel like you're learning something. I know it is completely different, not doing face-to-face learning. But you guys basically are, I'm trying to do some different things for you guys and also make it interesting for you. So I never really worry about you guys. You guys are really good about doing your work and studying. So we'll just try to continue carrying on like we have done all year. And we're going to move slower, obviously, than if we were doing face-to-face learning. But anyway, we're going to try to keep going and get through. I'd love to get through 3 more chapters, and then I feel like we've really covered everything that we needed to. So we're just going to keep on moving through. Of course, we're not really able to do our labs that I would love to do, but that's okay. Since we're moving a little bit slower, we'll just spend more time on the material, and maybe I can find some virtual labs that we have online and go over it that way. So take care. And again, if you need me, 1 to 3 p.m. I'm always on Google Hangouts. If you have any questions, if some of this that if I went over didn't make sense, feel free to shoot me an email or an instant chat on Google Hangouts. And hope you're doing well. And I don't know if I'll see you soon, but anyway, I hope this helps.